Welcome back to another episode of the Working Class Fishing Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brian. We got John Morris here, and we have a special guest today with us. Mr. Kerry Davids comes from Miami, Florida. He is actually relatively new to the whole fly fishing experience, just starting in the last year, but he is new to fly tying, fly fishing itself, but he is actually out there getting on the fish pretty aggressively. One of his main species is the Peacock Bass, and he also goes after some other stuff. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you all about it. I'm going to save a lot of this for Kerry and let him kind of talk to all of us. So, Kerry, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, taking some time on this Saturday. Hopefully the weather's beautiful down there in Florida. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brian and John. It's overcast. I keep hoping it would rain, and I know that sounds funny, but we have a very dry winter season. And in June, the rainy season is supposed to start. And when it does, it raises the water levels of the lakes, the canals, and everything else. So I live in a community where there's 5 man-made lakes. And when the water levels are right, I can walk the man-made lakes with my 7.5-foot risen fly rod and fish for peacock bass. I tie my own flies. I get in a lot of good exercise. But ever since the winter, the water level is so low that the peacock bass stay deep. Not only that, we had cool fronts. In Miami, we don't really have too many cold fronts, if you know what I mean. But now, after a week's worth of rain, the water levels came up, and I was actually able to go to one of the lakes here and catch a bluegill, and that was the first fish for me here in 2021. I've had to go out to the Everglades, where you see that gator behind my shoulder there, and fish there to catch peacock bass, because, of course, there's always water in the Everglades, and peacock bass.
Excellent. So you're not original. When we were talking about the weather and everything else, you're not originally from Florida. Go ahead and talk about your adventure from where you came from down to Florida, just to fill everybody in.
Well, okay, I grew up on Long Island. That explains the accent. And yes, I have an accent. But my father was from way out east on Long Island. If you look at Long Island, they have the North Fork and the South Fork. He grew up on the North Fork by Peacock Bay in Southold, Peacock. And every summer we'd go out there and fish. We'd catch snapper, you could catch flounder, fluke, depending. We had, of course, the Great South Bay with Captree. And so fishing, I've been doing that since I was about 4 years old, which that was in 1960. So anyway, older than I look. But yeah, so saltwater fishing constantly. Freshwater fishing, I lived in the Orlando area, just north of Orlando, in the 80s, and I would catch largemouth bass there. Once I came down to South Florida in 1998, I didn't fish. I didn't know how to fish, didn't know what to fish for. And then finally, a friend of mine took me out to the Everglades, and we were using spinning rigs with Super Fluke, the Golden Bream by Zoom, and catching peacock bass like that. So that was a lot of fun. But then I started watching channels about fly fishing. So I bought a Redington Vice combo, 7/8 weight, because that was the cheapest on Amazon. And it served me okay. It's just that I wanted to try something lighter. Now, I'm sure everyone knows Tom Rosenbauer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
from Corvus, right? Tom Rosenbauer has this small stream fly fishing thing where he's out there with a 7.5-foot 3-weight, and he's catching panfish, and you get to meet people, and you fish in urban areas. And I'm thinking, that looks cool. Have a little 7.5 3-weight and just, catch panfish. So I bought one from, again, Risen, and started catching peacock bass. In the same lakes here, I caught one that was over 2 pounds on the 3-weight. Caught a nice gar too, like you did, John, that big one. But they put up a really good fight, especially on the 3-weight. But the crown jewel was, I believe, March out in the Everglades when I landed peacock bass, 3 pounds, 3 ounces. And I got it on the scale. It's in one of my YouTube videos. But that thing is a blast. And I use it. That was like number one. I'm trying to use my Risen ITB 4 weight now, 9 foot, and I tie a Euro Nymph leader where you get the long parse and then you get that indicator line. So I bought Cortland indicator 0.013 inches, get a section of that, tippet ring, and then 3X fluoro flex strong from Rio, to get to the fly. And just try to drift that, maintain a tight line. And let me tell you, when the fish are biting, you can feel them. And it's great. When they're not biting, of course, you snag and you hit bottom and whatever. Kind of what happened to me this morning, which is why I was late. I caught one and I says, no, I can't just catch one. I need to get one more to make it worthwhile. And anyway, that's the way it goes,
Yeah.
Oh man, that's the fishing conundrum right there. It's like, oh yeah, I got one, but do I really just want one? No, I can get two.
Exactly. And then I could feel nibbles here and there. I could see a flash every once in a while in the water. And I was like, you can do it. Come on. And then swap flies because, maybe that fly just didn't quite have the mojo, and different flies, colors, you'd be surprised what works. Yeah, I know a lot of people watch channels of fly fishing, primarily geared to trout. And then every once in a while, smallmouth or largemouth bass. Well, trout and midges and stuff like that, incongruent with peacock bass. You got to tie different flies. Although I have caught peacock bass on flies that you would think would go for, bluegill would go for, buggy flies with silly legs. That's what I caught that 2-pounder on here in the lake close by. So it's just whatever they feel like biting. But lately, I've been using black and purple bucktail with UV polar flash and chartreuse crystal flash. Again, that iridescence, if you're going a little lower, that iridescence seems to get them. They might not be able to tell color, but the iridescence, once they get a glint, they see something and it's like, now I can go after it.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, I've been following you for a long time on Instagram, and I'm pretty new myself to fly fishing and everything. I took to it pretty hard, but I've only been doing it. It's close to a year now. I'm a few months short of a year, I think, but I've been following you forever, and I've been watching your flies, and it's just like, man, I really like those. There's this simplicity to it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like, okay, well, I understand how this fly was made, and then a few pictures later, there you are with a bass with that fly, and it's like it's resounding with me because you don't have to spend 30 minutes tying that fly. It's something you can whip up in 10.
Yes.
If you can just sit back, have a drink, tie a little bit, and you can tie 5 or 6 of them in the time it takes to tie some of these huge articulated streamers, and they catch fish. I love your flies, man. I do. I absolutely love them. That's what originally drew me to your page. So, Kerry, you got to tell me, what is the Dino con Sabor?
Okay. In Miami, there's a large Latino population, mostly Cuban, but you have a lot of Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, Colombians as well, Ecuador. My wife is from Nicaragua. So the first thing you have to do in Miami, if you want to get into that side of the community, is learn Spanish. So I'm not sure, everybody knows Carlos Santana, but there's Oye, ¿cómo va? But in the beginning, the gallo sabor. And what that literally means is like somebody that has swing, or, they've got it. Somebody that is lame or whatever does not have sabor. So that's a slang usage of it. So Dino is a nickname that I got from my brother from a pack of cigars in the 70s, these skinny cigars. They had a picture of the guy. I have a picture of me, my 22nd birthday. I have a shirt on, open, 3 buttons, because that's what you did in the 70s, an ascot of all things, okay, and a blazer. and
Nice.
I'm propped against my amp. I'm a musician, by the way. Ever
Cool.
since I was 6 years old, I toured with a disco band in the 70s. Okay, so there I am propped up against this amp that is almost as tall as I am, and my brother looks at the picture on the back of the cigars, and there's this guy dressed with an ascot and a blazer, and he starts calling me Dino. Well, it fit because we grew up with a lot of Italians. And back then, I was making okay money. So I was driving a big old 1977 Lincoln Town Coupe with the 460 cubic inch engine. So there's Dino in his Lincoln Town Coupe, and it fit. Dino is literally Dino, me with swing or whatever in Miami. And that's what I named my YouTube channel back then. Then when I started fly tying and fly fishing and uploading the videos, it's like, well, you can't name it unless you're commercial, and you can't be commercial unless you have 1,000 hours and so many viewers and subscribers. I'm like, well, I guess I'm stuck with Dino Consabora for my channel then. And that's the long story of it.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
It's just so funny how we come about the names that people come up with, because being in the industrial side of the workforce, everybody kind of came up with names depending on things that happened. And so it's funny that your brother came up with that out of that, but at least the story. Like, some people get a name and they have no idea what it is. It's like, why do you call me that? It's like, don't worry about it.
Oh, trust me. When I lived in North Carolina in Greensboro back in the early 90s, you'd walk into a dry cleaner. Now, you got to picture certain parts of Greensboro, people kind of talk like this. And this woman at the counter looks at me and sees Dino, whatever I was wearing at the time. And she's like, Dino, is that anything like the Flintstones? And I'm like, no. And, I didn't want to get into it's because I was, connected, but I just let it slide.
Nice.
Anyway.
Well, hey, that it's memorable. That's the thing. Is like, the name is memorable, and now it's like, it's unique, it's streamlined, it's memorable, and it fits your region, which is where you're concentrating a lot of your efforts fishing, right? So for now. Yeah. God forbid I ever get to travel. Yeah. Well, I can see you going some great places just based on the species that you're targeting, the peacock bass and even the urban bluegill and panfish and things like that. That's super cool. And the fact that,
there was one place, I'm sorry, Brian, there was one place when I was working in 2013, I was on a project in Northwest Alabama, and they told me you get to stay there. You had to work every other Sunday. I know, sounds brutal, but they paid you for every hour, and they paid well. All expenses were covered, right? This was great. So they said, oh yeah, we got Pickwick Lake over here. Now, if you're familiar with the FLW tours, Pickwick Lake is one of the stops.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, yeah, Pickwick Lake, the river, the dams and everything, there's some pretty good fishing. And I'm like, really? And I went out there and I went to Dick's Sporting Goods in Florence, bought myself a spinning rod and reel. So I have it there. And sure enough, there was largemouth and smallmouth bass and hybrid bass. And I was close enough from the plant that I could drive out there and go fishing every evening just about. And then when I was done, it got too dark. I even had to buy a headlamp so I wouldn't trip on the way back to the car, because you had to walk out into the woods a bit. So I'm walking back, and I didn't want to step on a snake. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
So I'm walking back to the car, get in the car, drive back to the Marriott, and then go up to the executive level and just have a bunch of dinner type stuff, hors d'oeuvres or whatever, if I didn't feel like going to a restaurant. But that was some really good fishing. That's what, kept me going. If I ever get a chance to go back there to do some fishing, I'd love to.
Mm-hmm. It's fun how we notice those destinations. There's always that super cool, fun destination that we all find that we want to go back to. But, you're talking about fishing not with conventional tackle, which, hey, nothing wrong with that. That's a lot of fun. But how did you get into fly from the conventional tackle? Because it sounds like you have a lot of experience with conventional tackle, and then you just transitioned into fly recently. Yes. What got you into fly fishing?
It seemed like a challenge. And you watch enough videos. Brian Flexig from Mad River Outfitters is one fellow that I learned a lot from. A lot of people know him. Tom Rosenbauer, of course. Pete Kutzer for casting from Orvis.
Yeah.
There's so many different videos. And lately I've been watching George Daniel,
Mhm.
who was with the USA fly fishing team and competed in the Euro competitions. He teaches at Penn State now. Believe it or not, Penn State
Really?
has a fly fishing course, which is awesome. You know, so, he learned from Joe Humphreys at the Penn State fly fishing course there. So that's his mentor. He refers to him as Mr. Humphreys. But George Daniel, if you ever want to learn something about Euro nymphing, he is so scientific about it. And that's how, you know, I learned about how to make leaders and whatever. And John, how's your blood nuts coming along?
Oh, much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get traumatized anymore. That's the other thing, because that was difficult. Now I get it. You know, you wrap and then
Yeah.
come back around, pinch. You know, and every once in a while, when I get that second part to come up, it's okay to use your teeth to hold it in place and then pull so it doesn't come out.
Yeah.
But as long as you get the 90 or the parallel, whatever, I guess
Mhm.
perpendicular. There you go. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So where do you guys fish in Texas, though? That's a big state.
So Brian's actually from the Pacific Northwest. I'm your southern boy. So I live in Northeast Texas, and I kind of fish all over. My main stomping grounds, if you will, is the Sulphur River. That's where I focus. That's really where my dedication is. It's not so much focus. It's absolute dedication and loyalty to that river now, because I have beliefs that the next state record fish, the sport fish that I'm not really a sport fish, but the fish I'm chasing, I have very strong beliefs that it is there. So I spend majority of my time there. But other than that, if I go trout fishing, I'm fishing in Arkansas. It's about hour and a half, 2 hours. The next river up's like 3 hours. So if I'm trout fishing, it's Arkansas. If I'm bass fishing, we got some local lakes around here as well. And then hybrid, striped bass, panfish, crappie, long-nosed gar, which is what I'm chasing, is all at the Sulphur River. Everything's there. So
Cool. And Brian, Pacific Northwest,
Yep.
you must have a lot of opportunities there.
Oh yeah, there's no shortage. I would consider the Pacific Northwest to be the equivalent of Florida, because we have the saltwater fishery and we have the freshwater fishery. The only thing Florida's lacking is a massive river. We have the Columbia River, which is like our big river. They call it the River of the West. It's, you know, right up there with the Mississippi and you know, all that. We have this massive river that runs down in between Oregon and Washington that flows out of Canada, and it is supplied by multiple tributary rivers. And so our big thing here is salmon, steelhead, and trout. So steelhead is a sea running rainbow trout. Basically, if you're from New York, you should know, you probably know about steelhead and salmon runs. They're not a lot different.
Well,
from
they would be more up north in the Pulaski area, for example. They have a big river up there that they fish.
Yeah, exactly. They'll go up there into that Niagara Basin and all that kind of stuff. It's very similar here. We have multiple runs of salmon. So we get sockeye salmon and Chinook, or king salmon as people know them, and silver salmon or coho salmon. Mm-hmm. It depends on where you're from. We get the chum salmon or dog salmon, and we also, there's a very few pink salmon, but they do run around. But we do get the summer and winter run steelhead, and we have just some of the most prolific trout fisheries in the United States. It's just a part of the West.
Oh yeah.
But we also have some really good warm water game fish. Some rivers have been overtaken. They're not native to here. They are wildly reproducing. But we do have, you know, great smallmouth and largemouth bass fisheries. We do have striped bass fisheries. We have the big fish, you know, so we have white sturgeon out in the Columbia and some of the tributaries, which are just absolutely massive fish. We have the offshore fishery with the halibut and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of great places to fish around here. I could go on all day.
Yeah, we have plenty of fishing. If you have a flats boat, for example, or a boat, and then you can go further east. Where I'm at, way out west, in western part of Miami, we have a lot of canals, man-made lakes, whatever. And fishing is, it's okay. But let's say you wanted to catch bonefish, for example, you can catch permit, snook, tarpon.
Yeah.
You get a flats boat or something like that, and you're over out east, Biscayne Bay, for example. I wish I could remember his name. There's a famous fly fisherman, saltwater. He lost his eye. It was an accident, and he lost it. But he could fish better in Biscayne Bay than with just the one eye, and see the different fish a lot better than fully sighted people. Can't remember his name at the moment. It's a sign of old age, I guess. But he was super famous at it, and he actually did a full biological study of Biscayne Bay and the fishing that would happen there, different temperature levels and good stuff. Eventually it'll come to me, and if not, well, whatever.
Yeah, I was just trying to do a quick search.
There's opportunities. Sure. It's not coming to me at the moment, though.
So in regards to peacock bass, so peacock bass are like these neotropical species, and we kind of touched on earlier. They're not really bass. They're it's a cichlid, right? So just some fun facts that I came across earlier is that they were introduced here. They are an invasive species.
Well, not necessarily invasive. They were introduced here, but they're not considered invasive.
All right. So they were introduced in what, 84? 84, yeah. So they've been here a while. Yes. So what's the difference between a butterfly and a speckled peacock? That's something I couldn't really...
I don't know, to be honest. I think it's one and the same. It's just somebody called it one thing, somebody called it another. There might be subspecies, and I'm sure there's crossbreeding going on. You see a stop sign that looks like a peacock bass. No, not quite. But anyway, the bottom line is that the peacock bass cohabitate pretty much with the cichlids, Mayan cichlids, spotted tilapia. They have mouths very similar to largemouth bass. Now, fishing the man-made lakes here, I've actually caught reasonable peacock bass on small flies, like a number 6 dry fly. But for the most part, if you want to be able to get the hook out without having to, let's get the forceps or whatever, and go in deep, and you gotta whatever, bigger hook. And if you mash down the barb, that makes life a lot easier too. If you lose one or two, okay, fine. But trust me, you'll feel, I know I've done it. I hate to admit it, but the peacock bass would be so aggressive that they literally inhale the hook, and then you got to try and get it out, and they're bleeding, and it's not going to be pretty. You try to be as gentle as possible, but after that, it's like, no, it's just mash the barb down, and you'll be a lot better off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's one of the great things for catch and release fishermen in particular, are barbless hooks. And for me, something I kind of preach, it's not just for the fish, it's for me too. The last time I ever fished a barbed hook, and I mean that, I crush every barb, even when I sell hooks. If my hook's not barbless, you're getting a barbless hook. I put a salmon hook in my hand, and that was the last time I ever fished a barbed hook, because I couldn't get it through the other side.
Right.
It is easier for the fish too. And I fish with my little dude, and if he's throwing flies around, which he does on occasion, he throws them on light spinning gear under a floater or bobber, whatever you want to call it. He throws them under a bobber.
Wait, if it's a fly rig, it's an indicator.
Oh yeah, that's true. But it's it's
not a bobber, it's an indicator.
But so he throws it on his ultralight spinning gear, and he's hooked himself before. And it makes hook retrieval much easier on fish and people. Yeah.
And you're right. Brian Flexig, again, in one of his videos from Mad River Outfitters, says the same thing. It's not for the fish. If you were worried about the fish, you wouldn't go fishing and catch it in the first place. it's about you and trying to get hooks out, and not just out of you, but let's say your backpack or whatever, you can mess up material like that trying to get a
Yeah,
barbecue.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. So,
No, I'm with you, dude.
that being said, I used 2-aughts on a few of my flies, black and purple, and I've had pretty good luck. And you would think 2-aught, isn't that more like for largemouth bass? Well, again, they have similar mouths, and with the bucktail and dumbbell eyes, it's like a super large clouser, if you will.
Yeah.
And you have that wide gap on the 2-aught so that, the hook, you can just easily get it out, or they can easily, set it in their mouths, and bring them on in. So that's nice.
So with that being, so do you strip set peacocks, or have you had to, or is it just kind of, are you trout setting, or are you actually stripping into the fish? Or so,
To be honest, I've seen some people do topwater stripping. There's this one fellow that fly fishes. Not only that, I have to say, he's really good at double hauling. And that's something I am terrible at still. Okay. But he can double haul and get the fly to go from one side of the canal to the next and then strip. And he uses flies that you would expect to use for tarpon. It's hard to describe, fine and not too long a hook shank, and then like a crown over the hook where you have the eye. So like you get, let's say, craffer, and then you push it back over. Or micro chenille, let's say, is another one. So I've seen him catch peacock bass topwater like that. I haven't had much luck topwater fishing like that. For me, it's a slow retrieve. And then sometimes if you can sight fish them, you'll get it close to them and aggravate them. That's the other thing. They're very protective. And if they see something that's in their face for a couple of seconds, if they want to be aggressive, they'll attack. And at that point, you can catch them. With the water level as low as it is, they're deeper now. So that's where I decided, let me try to do this Euro nymphing technique, tight line, and touch bottom a couple of times, and then make sure I'm a little above, because I've lost flies, trying to stay on the bottom, get snagged. So at this point, you just come along, and if you feel on the 3X tippet when they strike, okay, let's back and forth a little bit, and you'll watch, see the flash, they hit, bring them in, you got yourself a video. So life is good.
That's pretty cool that you're able to nymph for those bass, because a lot of people are under the impression like a nymph style still, but just that idea. Yes. A lot of people think it's like a full-on streamer game, or it's going to be something that like a mimicking something of that nature and being stripped and doing that. But to actually follow like a drift, that's really cool. That's a unique fishing style for bass. It intrigues me. So I mean, how did you come around to figuring that out?
Well, again, George Daniel with his whole Euro nymph setup, and another fellow named Tim Camisa from Trout and Feather. He has his Instagram channel. Very funny guy, Central Pennsylvania. He was talking about Euro nymphing and how he would come home from a fishing trip, tell his wife about it, and his wife was like, do you realize you're talking about like triple the number of fish that you used to catch? Now, you can go full blast, 10.5-foot 3-weight, monocore, level line points, 0.22 inch diameter, this 11-foot leader, multicolor, and the very fine tippet and stuff. Eventually, I'll do that route just because I want to see if you can really Euro nymph like competition for peacock bass. Right now, I'm using the 4-weight, but I tie my own leader with the bicolor indicator from Cortland and the lighter tippet. And believe it or not, the fly line doesn't leave the pole. You just have that. I tie 25-pound maxima, 20-pound maxima, blood knotted, and then the indicator line, another 3 feet, let's say, tippet ring, and then the 3X Fluoroflex strong. And when I'm jigging, drifting close to the bank, I still got fly line on the reel pretty much, and I just have the leader out there. So that means it's very sensitive as long as you maintain that quote unquote tight line. And you just feel them hit the hook. Literally, it's like a freight train hitting it. And if they hit it just right, you can set and you got them.
That's awesome.
It's just, again, I adapted their technique for peacock bass.
Well, that just sounds like,
that do that.
it sounds like just such a fun way to pursue them, because it just goes back to that whole, we know Euro nymphing in the West is mostly a river fishing technique where we're dredging. I mean, you're getting down in the strike zone super fast and you're working some real swift water. That's what we predominantly work in.
Mm-hmm.
You can work through a boulder garden with a lot of boils. You can work like the edges of eddies where there's transitional current. To hear, like, it's just, for me though, it's cool to hear that you're fishing in these waters that I wouldn't typically associate with that type of style, with that style. That's just super cool.
Exactly.
Now when you started experimenting around with it, what brought you to, like, say, you know what, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna try that nymphing? I mean, maybe it's redundant to that other question, but were you like just out fishing one day and it was like, I can't catch anything, or why won't anything hit? I'm just gonna go wild and try it. Or did you put some time and thought into it?
I mean, to be honest, I had my best day on April 25th. I know this because the videos are dated in the YouTube channel. I landed 10 peacock bass, 2 Mayan cichlids, and I was like, almost, you know what? I'm bored. I just caught so many fish. I'm going to go home now. Not quite. I mean, but it's like, that's a lot of fish. And I think I got stuff I need to do, like edit this video and get it uploaded. Mm-hmm. But trust me, that was a phenomenal day. And I was not Euro nymphing that day, but I decided to give it a shot just to see what would happen. I did lose a couple of flies last Sunday, but I landed a peacock bass, and this family had just pulled up. So I'm explaining to them, a peacock bass, there were 2 children there. Here, you want to touch it in the net? And then when I was trying to get it out of the net, it managed to flop because these things are strong. Yeah. And I ended up snapping the tippet, managed to get it, rescue the fly. It flopped out of my grip. And after that, I lost my rhythm. And no matter what I did, so I lost 2 flies. Nothing was going right. After about an hour, I'm like, you know what? It's like Vegas. You can be on a winning streak, but when your luck changes, if you think you're going to get back to the winning streak, you're just going to give it all back. And I realized my rhythm's gone. I had a good run with 3 fish, Euro nymph style. Time to just call it a day, which I did. And it was like, well, okay. So, it all depends. It was just a matter of try something new. And for now, it's okay. I like it. It's just the weather is weird with the rain allegedly coming and then not. So I don't know what's going on with that.
It's been like that for a lot of people. Weather-wise, the weather has been, Mother Nature has been on vacation and just partying hard because she doesn't know what she wants right now.
There's a tropical storm in the panhandle of Florida now.
There might be. Like I know out east, like Virginia, we have some. Brian and I have some good friends out there, and he was like, the water is so far down that it's just so hard to go fishing right now. He said, we need rain. We need it bad. Mm-hmm. Their water levels are just so low. And what's crazy is Texas has almost had record rains. Well, we had that crazy snow this year.
Yes.
Texas. Yeah. And like absolutely insane snow.
And cold. I mean, you guys had record-setting cold.
Yeah, I remember I was at work one day and it was like -4 or 5 degrees.
Yeah.
And we've had an absolute ton of rain as well. So I'm hoping that's going to start moving east, because I know the east needs rain, and I know even the west needs rain too. I don't know why Texas is getting slammed so bad, but all in all, we all need more rain.
Yeah. Well, say hold the rain off in Houston because those guys flood.
Yeah.
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 Seriously. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily here in the West we got the mountains with the snowpack, and and the snowpack and the glacial runoff really helps supply the rivers, but it's still in drought mode here. A lot of the Columbia Basin's been in a drought. A lot of our rivers, actually, some of our major tributaries, they're almost stagnant. And I'm not saying stagnant in a way like what still water is, but there's been hardly any water at all, and it's impeded fish migration severely.
sure.
It's really held it back. A lot of the fish are holding off in the ocean because they're waiting, because they're olfactory. They smell, and they're waiting to get
Yeah.
that smell of their natal stream to come back so that they can push up and spawn. Well, there's no water, and when they do start moving up, they're moving at night. They're not aggressively attacking anything. So fishing for them is almost a moot point. You can't get that big rutted up, juiced up fish to go and attack your baits once it gets inland, and so it's been really rough. But we're kind of worried about the fish survival now, because we're not getting enough water in their spawning areas to allow them to even spawn. We stay out of that. They're just not, there's not enough water. So yeah, we've been in a drought spell here out west now. It's been a very dry spring in the Pacific Northwest, and it's normally a soaking wet, dripping mess here.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, that's one thing I remember. I had to teach a few classes, technical classes in Portland, Oregon, and I just remember it being overcast in October. Pleasant place back then. Now it's summer of whatever was a little weird, but it was I enjoyed it, and ended up having dinner at a restaurant by Haystack Rock.
Oh, okay.
Which is supposed to be yeah.
Yeah, Cannon Beach.
And you could see the Pacific and the Haystack Rock there, and that was nice.
Yeah, so I live in the Portland metro area, so it's cool that you've been here. But yeah, you can see our coast there. Typically, if you were here in October, you should have got a little bit wet. And this last October, it was a little bit dry.
Yeah.
It was a little dry. Going into November, we had some torrential rains and some real good flooding. It wasn't like catastrophic flooding. Our basins could handle it because it'd been so dry. It took everything.
Sure.
And then through the winter, we thought we're going to have an epic winter steelhead season, and the fish never came. And it just stayed kind of semi-droutish dry, and nothing ever happened. But it's the struggle of every angler that it's a double-edged sword. Do I want rain? Because when it's raining super hard, is it really good to go out and try to fish? But on the same token, we want the rain so that the fish can have some hydrology.
Yes.
You definitely want that. That's a real important
and that's why I'm like, it's time to rain here to get the lakes back to their level, and then chill again. So I agree 100%.
So you had some stuff that you wanted to share with us. I was gonna kick this over really quick, Kerry, if you want to share that stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and pull you up here, and just so that the people listening on Spotify know, we do have this on YouTube. So I am gonna make you a host, Kerry, and Kerry's gonna share some visuals. So here we go, Kerry. You are now the host, and you have control. So
let me see if I can do this. Share. Okay, so I think you can see my Instagram profile.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and a lot of the flies that I've tied, I tried this one out today with the orange marabou. Not much luck. This one is a topwater fly, no additional weight, Peacock Bass colors. I tried it yesterday, but there just wasn't anything in the water. So this I have faith in. If you notice, there's crystal flash right here, which is, again, the iridescence thing. Let me see if I can find. Okay, this is me with one of my Peacock Bass, but let me see. Here we go. One of the buggy flies I was talking about, kind of yellow jacket-ish. Believe it or not, I tried it, didn't get anything. It's in the box. I should try it again sometime just to see what happens. But again, the water levels have to be right. But Let me see if I have, there we go. This fly is the fly that I had the record day on. Grizzly, olive, cockneck feathers, and craffer with some flash and crystal flash, dumbbell eyes, and it's on a one-hot bait holder hook in El Cheapo from Bass Pro Shops. And like I said, 10 peacock bass, 2 Mayan cichlids. That was awesome. But the problem is when I got done with it, this is a before picture, this is an after picture.
Wow, they really throttled that.
Messed up. Oh yeah, I mean, but that was a great day. That was on the 6-weight Risen ITB 9-foot with the Reddington Behemoth 5.6. When you walk along the banks, you have to be careful because I was looking in the water, walking to my right and then checking to my right to make sure I wasn't about to trip. And I see his tail and I'm like, oh crap. And I just kind of backed up. I got the GoPro and I recorded this with my phone so I could upload it to Instagram. Okay. But that right there is about 8 foot. And if he had not been sleeping, if he had been facing at me, he would have seen me walking towards him and he may have challenged me. You know, so I'm very lucky. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying gators or something else. We're starting to get some here in Texas as well. One of your flies recently, I say recently, but I'm bad about time frames, is you tied a really large bluegill bully. How did that fly turn out?
Not bad. This is the spotted tilapia that I caught locally in one of the man-made lakes. I jigged in front of him using one of the buggy flies. And if I'm not mistaken, it was this one. And, you know, it's a pearl chenille, ice caddis, ice dub, silly legs. Let me see about that bully bluegill. I've actually caught peacock bass locally in the man-made lakes here. Yes. Okay. So this is a bluegill and the buggy fly that I caught it on. That was one of my first buggy flies where, if you notice, is missing antenna. So I don't have, well, seriously, because I tied this in November 10th, according to the date. And I caught the bluegill on it. But this is, okay. This is the 2-pounder. And I was on a number 6 Scud Pupa hook buggy fly. And that would be probably the same one that I caught this one on. So let's see. No, I take that back. This is it. This is the one that I caught that fly on. And what was really weird, again, you watch too many videos, you try too many things. I had a dropper rig set up on a very small swivel, and I had the top fly off on the top eye of the swivel, and then had the other one on the bottom. So I had 2 flies going, and it's in the YouTube video, I guess, from November 10th or whatever. But the bottom line is, or 15th, but the bottom line is that I swapped them, and the peacock bass took the buggy fly that time. But that was really interesting, the way that happened. What else do I have? Believe it or not, that peacock bass on the top, I caught on this little thing. It's a number 8 hook. Oh, wow. And trust me, they go after some weird flies at times. And, you know, sometimes bigger is better. Sometimes, you know, what else do I have? Oh, and this one, you can see the chartreuse fly, but that's my 3-weight, 7.5 foot Risen Genesis. And that's the first one that I had. That was the armor reel. I had a problem with it where the lines, the actual fly line, slipped out the side of the cage. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know it was on the spool. What happened? And believe it or not, I contacted Risen, and Ryan Goulsbury said, oh, you got a problem with it? Send it back. And I said, by the way, can I upgrade to the LW because you don't have any more of these available? And he said, you know what? Because you had problems with this, I'll swap this for the next model up, the LW. And since you bought the line and backing from us, I'll put the line and backing on that one too and ship it. All
Oh,
you gotta do
wow.
is send
That's a
me the
sweet
back.
deal.
Exactly. These people are really good for customer service. Believe it or not, I broke the tip on that 3-weight. I was trying to do something, got snagged in a branch on a tree in front of my house, low hanging. And instead of, being very gentle, I thought I can get it out, and it snapped. And I was like, ah. So I notified them. They have a policy for life, $25. Just go ahead. We'll send you whatever parts you need for your rod. And that's it. So for $25, I had a new tip. I'm back in business. But what I did is I challenged people to do the small stream challenge. Use a 3-weight to catch peacock bass and post it. Anyway, so I'm still doing that. Go back up. Oh, this is a scene from one of the lakes by my house. And this is back in October, so the water levels were still reasonable. So you can see that they have this shallow area, and when times are good, the fish will come closer, and you can sight fish them. If they're deeper though, when like it's cold or the water levels are low, you got to try and cast really far. And for me, that's not going to happen. Oh, there you go. That's the bully bluegill you were talking about, John. Yeah. I tied that. That actually worked a couple of times. And that's on a fire hole barbless hook. So I didn't have to crush anything with that. This is cool. I like this. It has a bird-like look. And that was before I crushed barbs. But as you can tell, the eyes and the black. And I think I actually got that snagged after catching a couple of fish with it. And then let's go back up here. Lately, what's been working? Oh, I tie weird stuff every once in a while. I got these weird curved hooks. This is a Mustad wide gap number 4. And you can tell the way it's bent weird. And yet I wanted to do some weird colors. And I actually had something follow it, but didn't strike. Again, the fishing hasn't been up to snuff lately. Like I said, April 25th was the prime day. And let's see, these. A lot of stuff with craft fur. I tie this in nymph style with the bead. But what seemed to be working for the most part was anything like this with the dumbbell eyes, the deceiver feathers, more peacock bass colors, again, flash. Here we go, more peacock bass colors. And you could cast this and catch peacock bass, all the way around in the Everglades. This is some of the flies. You notice there's a lot of flash going on. I try blue and white because of bait fish, but believe it or not, the actual peacock bass colors are working better now. Last year here in the local lakes, I was able to use bait fish colors in blue and white, bucktail, for example, and land a few fish. So I just try whatever works. So go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Kerry. Do you think so? Why do you believe that they're eating peacock bass colors? Do you think it's coming down to a predatory, almost cannibalistic issue?
Exactly, and there are several fish species that do just that. They'll eat whatever. So yeah, peacock bass colors. And the other thing is if you have a Sharpie, some people recommend putting stripes on the flies, and that tends to work. I know a lot of people swear by them. I've had some luck. It's not like, oh, wow, I put stripes and that was it. I'm killing them now. So anyway, yeah, no, seriously, it's just one of those things. I do stuff like nasty, buggy looking flies. But again, it's just, if there's fish there, you may catch something. If you try something and it's not happening and you go on to something else, and then you do catch something, you got to remember to try going back to it when there's some action again. But if you're on a winning streak, it's tough to say, let me go back and try one of those other flies just for the heck of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's plenty of fly presentation right there. As you can tell, there's so many different styles and whatever. Some of them work, some of them don't. Again, I look at videos, I get ideas, and I adapt according to them. Let's see. Yeah, on the 3-weight, come on. And this is my favorite spot. This is the largemouth that I'm pulling in, again, on the 3-weight. And if you ever get a 3-weight, it's like, this is a lot of fun. Now, you're not going to go for salmon or something like that with the 3-weight.
Right.
But, 2-pounders, whatever, on a 3-weight is a blast.
So that's
anyway. I'll let you go back then.
Yeah, no, that's a common rod weight for the Euro nymphers around here, and you will see people catch some fairly significant.
Long ones, though.
Yeah, you're talking about a 10-foot. Here's the 7.5 foot is not as common, but it is a great creek size. I do have a 7.5 foot 4-weight. That's what I have. Is actually given to me by a person. So that's the only reason why I'm in possession of that. But you'll see a lot of that nymphers using that 3-weight, and I've seen some fairly significant sized trout hauled in on that, especially out of a river, and
yes.
And they're just as juiced up as like a smallmouth or something. They can fight pretty darn good. They live their whole life in strong currents, so they got a pretty squirrely fight to them.
Those 10 foot or 10.5 foot 3-weights, though, are designed a little differently, where
Right.
they have a lot slower action, so they can give more to protect the tippet. And you
Right.
have to use lighter tippet, to be able to get that tight line type thing, that whole principle. So what I'm doing is, before I go ahead and get my 10.5 foot 3-weight, I'm trying it out with my 9 foot 4-weight, tie my own leader. And it's interesting. I just want to get to a point where, okay, I can consistently do that. But I do believe that Euro nymphing for peacock bass is a challenge. The only thing is that if you're Euro nymphing and you got bad boys like that in the canal, so there's no way that you're going to wade into it and high stick, for example. Not going to happen. Trust me, they'll sneak up on you and you're done for.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be wading in gator territory. That just doesn't sound good. Between them and snapping turtles and soft shell turtles, all that good stuff, it just seems like Florida is a good place to have a premature amputation.
Yes, with gators, definitely. This is another style that I'm tying with Steve Farrar SF fibers. And, you get that fish-like look. It's not very heavy. Stick on ice, for example. This is good for trying to do that stripping on top water for the most part, or slightly in the water. But if you'll notice, I actually have a bead on it because, again, I realized for me, the fish are deeper close to the bank. And I got to get down, like you said, get down faster. So I do have some flies without the bead for top water, but I personally haven't had much luck doing top water for peacock bass. Thursday morning using, hang on, this fly. Is that true? I caught the bluegill, and then maybe I did go back out there with it. But I'm trying to think. There was that fly I caught the bluegill, but there was another one that I had for top water. Oh, I know what it was, and I don't have a picture of it. I have to show you. I actually went to Sierra.com, and for $12, I bought a dozen Fat Alberts.
Okay.
And these are number 6.
Okay.
Foam flies. Now, I do have foam. I do have silly legs. I do have all the material because I blow hundreds of dollars on material. It's addicting. But I was like, let me try it out. Let me go. Because I was ordering a long-handled net, some other things to be able, because the Everglades with the water level low, that short-handled net wasn't cutting it. And I'm too old to, try to climb over some jagged rocks and stuff to get close to them. The terrain's uneven close to the bank. So rather than injure myself, I figured, let me get a longer handle. And so I bought that and some other things, and I added that to the order. But I did get 2 hits top water at the local lake here Thursday morning. Didn't land anything, but it was exciting to flip it, strip it, and all of a sudden something hits. You know, it's a cool feeling. And I'll try it some more. And if I do land something, I will definitely post it on the YouTube channel.
I am a dry fly and foam fly addict. I've got a serious issue with throwing dry flies for panfish.
I do too.
It's fun though.
Yeah. And you were talking about how sometimes fish like the bigger flies or the smaller flies or streamers. I've caught 3 bass on a size 16 and a size 14 cripple marsh brown.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just, and I had one hit a size 14 chronomid. Like bass will eat dries, and it's exhilarating because you'll get the little pop from the panfish. They just come up, they break the surface, and it's literally a snapping sound.
Right.
And you hear the snap, you see it, and then you go to set, and they're just so excited they miss it. But the bass, when he hit it, he or she, I don't know, I didn't really get a great look at it. It rolled. It wasn't like the bait wasn't so big that it came out of the water. It just rolled on it. And then I lifted my rod because I was like, well, dang, that's a big bluegill. No, it was a bass, It's but man, you'll have to shoot me your address after this, or a good mailing address, and I'll send you some gurglers.
Okay,
Because I would bet that you can get some action on some gurglers out there for some peacocks.
Well, it's too far. I bought, I don't know, it must be at least 100 sheets of foam of 2 millimeter, different colors. And I think I spent a whopping $11 for it on Amazon or something. And then I've got some of these sparkle foam sheets.
Oh, nice.
As well. Yeah, because the sparkle foam sheets, I figured I'm in Miami. I need a little bling.
Nice.
I think it's time that I start tying some foam flies. And trust me, when I tie them, John, they're going to be posted on Instagram.
I look forward to it.
Post the results. It's going to be fun.
No,
I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I mean, for what I paid for these fat Alberts, I can look at them and like, oh, okay, I see what they did here and the size and, access to the hook and the different layers. The chubby Chernobyls is another one. And I can see investing in the River Runs foam cutters as well.
Oh yeah, foam cutters are great. You can pseudo make your own as well. It takes a lot of time. What I do is I just measure my foam out in the section, so I know that. I mean, I have pieces cut right here actually, and I've got it's from Bozeman. It's a Firehole Outdoors. It's a magnetic fly bench. My cat's up here. It's this magnetic fly bench where I keep my hooks and stuff on it. But what I do is I pre-measure out, like these are for size 16s.
Okay.
Or so I'll measure it and I just know that. So I know my length, and then I measure hook gap for your foam itself. And generally, if you do hook gap and then the length you want for your hook and just write it down or remember it, you don't need the cutters. But man, the cutters are nice. But every time I go to get them, they're sold out. They go so fast.
Yes. No, you're right. I watch Tim Flagler is another one. And he's always good about how to do foam and to cut multiples at a time and then store them in these little plastic boxes. He's so organized. It's incredible. Oh, and by the way, I get the fly fish a lot because my wife works a lot, and if she can work on a weekend, she does. So I would be remiss if I did not, where did it go? I knew it was here. Oh, it's got it right here. So this is my 65th birthday, and that's Santa Luisa. And there I am toasting with a Guinness, and she makes sure that I'm a happy guy. And if she's got to work, then I can go fishing. If she's not working, then I try to, make sure that I'm available, of course. So that definitely works out.
That's awesome, dude.
That's so cool.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Right on.
Anyway, so if you feel free to go ahead and take back control, we have resumed control.
All right.
Attention planets of the Federation, attention all planets of the Federation, we have resumed control.
Oh, yeah. 2112.
Is that before your time?
Nope. I know that
There
one.
you
That's
go.
2112. See? Go ahead and
Absolutely.
go ahead and stop screen share there for me, Kerry.
Stop
if you could,
sharing.
please.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you
And
so
there you
much.
are.
All right. Let me take back over. Anyways, so with your adventure in the fly fishing here, Kerry, have you hit any obstacles like getting the information that you need? It sounds like you're very self-educated, and you've done just a magnificent job. Your flies are beautiful. Your technique is awesome. The amount of knowledge that you've garnered already in a short amount of time is really impressive. Have you noticed or had any issues or barriers to getting any kind of help, or has everybody that you've been around in the fly community been pretty supportive?
Well, I only know a couple of people in the fly community here. My knowledge I gleaned from the fly fishing channels. Like I said, Tim Flagler, Jim Missouri is another one.
Oh yeah.
Hooked for Life Fly Fishing, Peter Charles. That man is really good as well. Norquist, I think was the device manufacturer.
Norvice.
Norvice, right. But Norm, can't remember the last name now. But he was the one that came up with the Norvice thing. A little bit overpriced, if you ask me. I have a Peak, but they look nice the way they work. But you can watch his videos. But the videos have been a blessing. And from that, I can learn different techniques. And as John pointed out, I'm not one of those super fancy kind of guys. It's basically, I can do this and make it look reasonable. And a lot of times I'll see something, every once in a while, I'll try to get it just like the video. There's others where I learn techniques and I'm like, let me try and come up with a mashup and see what happens. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, I learn something. And as I go along, I've discovered, if you had done this first, it would have been a lot smoother. There's just some things that trial and error. But thank goodness for videos. That's all I got to say.
I'm very similar in that aspect. Brian's actually helped me a lot, whether he knows it or not. I started tying flies out of necessity here in Texas. We've got like 2 fly shops, and the only other people that fly fish around me that I know, it seems like every time you go out, you hear someone say, oh, well, yeah, I used to fly fish a long time ago, and then I just kind of gave it up. But I've got 4, really 3 people, and then a guy that I'm kind of mentoring as well. So there's like 5 of us that I know. And so that doesn't come with a lot of information. So I'm very similar in that aspect, that I had to seek online information. I had to read a lot from, the internet. I watched a lot of videos, and Jim Missouri, he's a gem,
Yes.
that guy's a national treasure. He breaks it down Barney style for how he's tying the flies, why he's tying it that way. And
Yeah.
he gives you a whole layout of all the materials. If you're just getting started in tying flies, Jim Missouri is great. And Norm Norlander is the creator of the Norvice. And I think also he also helped engineer a bobbin. I'm not familiar with the bobbin, but Norm Norlander did the Norvice.
Absolutely. Yeah, he passed away like 3 years ago,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. By the way, I do have a friend that grew up next door to me. He was tying flies, and I was traveling around the country for different information technology projects. Back then, money was really good. Money's good now, but it's a different kind of money. Before, you could be a nomad and make really good money. But he walked me through how to tie my first fly, and I have it right here still. I was I don't want to destroy it, even though it's terrible. So it's variegated chenille, way too much marabou, some dumbbell eyes on a hook, and that's it. So, and then this is the first time I tried to whip finish. So that was traumatic. That was and but now I got it. It's just trying to get the to stay on, and it was like, oh, but I still have my first fly, and if you notice, it's nothing like the other flies I tie now.
I've got some of my first ones. I'll send you some DMs after this of all my first flies.
That's awesome. Well, Kerry, with all of that good stuff, where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing, interact with you, do all that kind of stuff? What's your YouTube handle and your Instagram and all that stuff?
Well, the YouTube is Dino Con Sabor. You look for me and the users, just type Dino Con Sabor and I'll come up. You'll see my picture. 305 Dino is my Instagram. 305 is the main area code here in Miami. Or I should say the original. Now it's 305-786, whatever, but 305, is the original. And definitely just watch the videos. If you see something that you like, or if you learn something, or if you're like, hey, that was a cool fly, and I like the way it caught the peacock bass, comment, and I'll be more than happy to get back. I am also a Shriner. I just joined the Shrine this year as part of the Masonic groups. But one thing that I did is I told them I wanted to start a fly fishing unit. That's what they call them. You have different clubs. And I told them, let's get some people together to do fly fishing. And then if there's people that want to learn how to fly fish, I can teach them the basics at least to get them started. Now, they're not going to be double holing, and all this other good stuff, but, at least they can get line in the water, know what they're doing. And if they want to learn how to tie basic flies, they could definitely, I can show them how to do that. And if they work, even better.
Very cool. So
awesome.
That kind of goes into some of what do you have planned for future plans, I guess would be the best way I could put it. What is in the future for Kerry David?
As far as fly fishing is concerned, if I may, I'll plug them. It's a moonshine 10.5 foot Vesper rod for Euro nymphing. And I'll probably put a Reddington run on that. If not, I may spring a little bit more and get a Reddington rise, 5.6. The larger reel for the longer length of the Euro nymph rod. I've talked with Tim Camisa, Trout and Feather is his channel and Instagram. And as far as setup, he was like Cortland 0.022 level line with the monocore. And let's see I do have it here. Great. He recommended this Rio 11-foot leader because I wasn't sure how to tie my own at that point. I've since learned, but here we go. It just happened to be in front of me. So this is 11 foot, starts at 0x, goes down to 2x. And if I feel like it, I may actually put a tippet ring at the end of this and maybe 2 to 3 feet of 3x, 4x, the 4x strong tippet. And but yeah, I can definitely see the Euro nymphing for peacock bass and cichlids being a real challenge. Now, it's an investment for that gear. Granted, it's not like buying a Sage X or something, but yeah, it's still, you're looking at about $650 total. Okay. And that's why we work hard for a living, though, right?
Oh,
So we can do
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
You got to work hard so you can play hard. I hear you,
Yeah.
bud.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's one of those goals that a lot of our listeners, I think, they're working towards that, to be able to save up that money and all that. But I think some of the other stuff that you've highlighted today is really accessible for quite a few folks. Like,
Yeah.
you're only a
And
year into it, and it's not like, I mean, maybe you got thousands of dollars invested already, but somebody could get started for, 100, $150 and be
absolutely.
out there targeting these fish just like what you're doing.
The ITB series from Risen is $159. And as I told John, if you buy it this weekend with the code DAD, you get 15% off.
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
the whole store.
Yeah.
No, I don't talk about this a lot because people don't really ask. But all of your dry fly hooks that you get on any of my flies they're Risen.
Yes.
My streamer hooks for like woolly bugger and stuff, they're Risen. And I've even got some of Ryan's artwork, here on my dubbing container. Like Risen's an outstanding company, and it's
I
not
got
just
my streamer 300s in size 4, and I've tied some hooks recently on this as well.
It's
So,
15% off the entire store, and we're not plugged or sponsored by Risen or anything like that.
Absolutely. No, if the company does you right, I have no problem doing right by them and mentioning, their products and their service. And like I said, I was heartbroken when I snapped the rod tip of the 3-weight, because that was my favorite, rod at that point. Well, it still is pretty much. But back then I had the 8-weight and the 3-weight. And I was just walking around with the 3-weight at the lakes. But I went ahead and I bought a 4-weight of theirs in the ITB series, a 6-weight of theirs, just because. And I was thinking of getting the 3-weight in the ITB, but I'm thinking for now, I have my 3-weight Genesis, which if you're looking for something entry level, just to have a 3-weight 7.5, it's going to set you back maybe $85, which isn't bad. Okay.
It's really good.
And that's for the whole series, especially with the 15% off. It's a fast action. It's not as slow, moderate fast as ITB, but that's not going to hurt you. But I think if I'm going to invest in another rod and have 5 instead of 4, it's going to be the Moonshine Vesta for the Euro Nymph setup.
Very cool. Well, Kerry, we're getting to that time. I want to give you a few minutes for any closing thoughts, advice, sage insight to anybody just getting into fly fishing or fishing in general. You got a lot of life experience, and any kind of insight you want to throw out there to everybody?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you and John for having me. It's been a pleasure. John and I have been trading messages in Instagram about flies and other things. I saw that order that you got going out to that customer. That's a really interesting assortment of flies. Some of them I've never tied before, but I could, hey, like Walt's worm or something like that for Peacock Bass. Who knows? It may work.
Yeah.
As far as fly fishing is concerned, fish your species. Now, granted, when I started, I learned, oh, look, trout and this and that, and that's great. But what I'm fishing for here, some of it doesn't apply. So you have to adjust. Again, there's fly fishing in general. There's not as much about peacock bass. I'd like to say I'm one of the few channels, because you don't find peacock bass all across the US. It's got to be South Florida, for example. That's it. And you go further north, you don't find them in Orlando, for example. You don't find them in Vero Beach. You don't find them in Clearwater. You have to be further south in the Naples area, for example. So it's a pretty restricted region for them. So largemouth bass, they're all over, and you could probably find plenty of fly fishing channels on that. But definitely fish your species, learn about your species, learn what they like. And if you're going to start flying, tying flies, just look at the basics. Again, Jim Ashur is excellent. His beginning series is excellent. Peter Charles is excellent as well for coming up with flies. I don't see them doing any weird stuff. If you really want to get into some complex flies, Gunner.
Gunner
Hello,
Brammer.
everybody. Hello, everybody. Gunner here.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he slays you with this like double articulated fly that's about this big for pike. And it's like, oh my God. Anyway, Gunner Brammer is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he's fished in the Amazon for peacock bass too. And he's hauled in, 10 pounders and stuff. And I'm like, wow. And he had that heavy metal music going on back then when he was on that trip. But yeah, he's one guy that if you really, it's like, I need a challenge. I don't think I can do that. Let me go back to basics again. Yeah, he has some good flies though.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, Kerry,
Again,
thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on this Saturday, running in from being out fishing, everything else. I think John and I are going to get back out there, and I'm hitting the reservoir, and I think John's hitting the spillway, and so we're going to get out there and go chase some fish ourselves too. So, but thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your great information, insight, your page, everything else. It's so nice to have a guest that's well versed with Zoom so that you can, take it on and share your stuff. So we really appreciate having you on. So, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely, Kerry. It's been great, man. Thanks.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you.
So
tight lines and good fishing out there.
All right, same to you, brother.
Absolutely.
So
there you have it, folks. Once again, this is Kerry Davids from Florida. You can find him on Dino Consabor on YouTube or 305 Dino on Instagram. All that information will be in the show notes. Until next time, thank you for listening, and get out there and catch some fish.